As readers, we often learn more about characters from clues we find in the story. Sometimes these clues can be found within the plot of the story. The things that happen in the story often tell us about the characters. We also learn about a character in a story by looking at the way the other characters respond to him or her. Let's watch a short film based on the book The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. Look for clues that tell you more about the main character in the story. The Red Badge of Courage begins during the Civil War in 1861. Henry Fleming, a young man aged 17, has just joined the Southern Confederate Army to fight the Northern Yankees. Henry begins worrying that he doesn't have the courage to fight the enemy. He fears he will not measure up to his fellow soldiers. Henry is so scared and nervous that he asks another soldier what it's going to be like on the front line.
How do you think the regiment will do?
Well, they'll fight all right, I guess. After once they get into it.
Think any of them boys will run?
Oh, there may be a few of them run. There's them kind at every regiment. Especially when they first goes under fire.
The soldiers march for several hours until they reach a battlefield. The enemy begins to charge, and Henry is forced to fire his gun. Henry's regiment is successful, and they rest after the battle. Henry takes a nap, but wakes to enemy gunfire. He panics. His instincts tell him to run. Henry wanders away from his regiment. He runs into a group of wounded men. He envies their wounds because he sees the wounds as red badges of courage. As Henry wanders farther, he comes across some other soldiers. The soldiers turn out to be Yankees. One of the soldiers hits Henry with his rifle, injuring him badly. When Henry finally finds his way back to his regiment, he makes up a story that he was wounded by a gunshot. The next day, Henry fights with newfound strength. His fellow soldiers are stunned at Henry's fearlessness. Henry continues to fight in battle, but now he feels more courageous and more at peace with fighting in a war. Now, let's take a closer look at how we can use details from the story to learn more about Henry's character. What can you tell about Henry's character when he asks his fellow soldier about fighting on the front lines?
Think any of them boys will run?
Here we can see that Henry feels scared and nervous. He asks his friend if any soldiers would run away, because he was thinking about doing that himself. These emotions tell us that he is unsure of his decision and his courage. Often, a character's actions give the reader more information about the character. Henry runs away from the battle scene, even though it was against the law for a soldier to run away from battle. When Henry left his regiment, he was committing a crime and an act of cowardice. When Henry returned to his regiment, he lied to his fellow soldiers about his wound. He told them he had been grazed by a bullet, so they would think he too had a red badge of courage. His fellow soldiers thought he was courageous and a good soldier for taking a wound and returning to battle. What conclusions can you make about Henry based on his actions here? The other soldiers treated Henry with newfound respect and admiration. This respect gave Henry the bravery to fight. Henry's act of cowardice turns out to be the very thing that gave him courage. As readers, we learn more about the characters from clues we find in the story. Sometimes these clues can be found within the plot. Many times we can learn more about a character by looking at the way other characters respond to him or her. Write down the traits of a character you recently read about. Do they share any of the character traits of Henry Fleming?